Hello and happy February. It's a gorgeous, sunny but cold day in here in Chicago. And I'm filming this upstairs so I can introduce you to our new puppy, Walnut. If you follow me, you know my other Chihuahuas are Peanut and Cashew, so he has to be a nut too. But little Wally here, he's been a great addition to our home. All right, buddy. So this month's theme is using analogous and monochromatic palettes, and it's going to be a lot of fun to see what we can create with a limited group of colors. And it's also going to really help you hone your ability to see values, as well as cut out the noise in a scene and really focus on the most important parts. So we'll be starting off with a grayscale painting, and it's kind of like a value study, but much more detailed. And we'll be using it as a value study for the rest of our paintings this month. It was a super fun challenge for me. I've done a lot of value studies over the years, but never an actual painting, only using black, white, and grays. And if you haven't tried it, here's your sign. So we'll be doing 5 more paintings over the course of this month, and the full videos will all be on my Patreon. If you're not a member yet, you can subscribe for free to test the waters, and a paid subscription that gives you full access is only $5 a month. So I hope to see you there. Now, let's get dusty. So I have all my grays picked out, and I'm just gonna start lightly kind of blocking in. And I'm gonna start with my darkest, which is all pretty much on the left side here, and then a little bit of this tree line. Now I'm not gonna press super hard initially here, because I don't wanna get too aggressive. Black is pretty hard to cover. You can see that there is a little bit of a break about here, and then we have the shore and then the reflection in the water. So again, I'm just starting with a lighter touch. And always come in and darken. And then over here, a little bit of these trees and their shadows. So that's my darkest gray. And I'm gonna come in with one that's just a smidge lighter. I don't know if we'll be able to tell the difference since I went so light with my initial. Yeah, this one's not really showing a whole lot of difference. So let's go to this next gray. So this is gonna be kind of my medium dark. And this is living more at the tops of our trees. This is interesting. I've never done just a black and gray painting before. This is going to be a very interesting exercise for me, for sure. All right, now I've got an even lighter gray. I don't know if this will be light enough. We'll see. I'm going to go in on my sky. Of my water. You know, this is a very, very light gray. I'm gonna go over it because I want to lighten it up a little bit more. It's a little too dark for me, especially since the brightest areas I'm going to be using white. I want to make sure that there is some definite difference between everything here. All right, so I'm going to come back in with my black. I'm going to start to get this in a little more heavily. And I'm going to blend this into the paper in a minute. I'm gonna blend all of it in, actually. I just want to make sure that my black is really in here. I don't want to shy away from my darks. I tend not to use black at all when I paint. It's just, it doesn't have any life, you know, it's just black. That's why I don't really use white either, because there's not much going on. There's no spark, no colors, but what I'm hoping will happen is that the grays are going to be what gives this painting its spark and its life. I did choose grays that are, they are pretty neutral, but they might have a little bit of blue in them. I'm gonna come back to my next darkest gray. I'm just gonna get my edging in here. Then I'm going to come back with my next lightest gray, and I'm just kind of working from dark to light. It's starting to take shape. Getting there a little bit at a time. And I haven't used my white yet. I really want to save that for where it's going to have the most impact. And now the layers are starting to build up. I'm starting to get some nice blending happening here. And I'm going to come back in after I get some of this light in. I'm going to come back in with my black just to kind of reinforce that darkness, because as you can see, it's been covered up quite a bit by my lighter colors. So instead of the black, I'm going to use this dark gray. And then I will bring the black back in. So this is that initial gray that it looked very close to the black. But now that I've got some layers down, you can see that it's gray. And now our reference image only has five levels in it. And this is all just a big black blob, but I am taking some liberty with it because I don't want it to be a black blob. I want it to obviously be a tree. So just putting some just some additional like textures in there is helping define it more as a tree shape. All right, so now I'm just gonna come in with my black, darken up some of this. And it's important to keep wiping your pastels off as you start to build up your layers, because if you don't, what's going to end up happening is you're going to start tracking and carrying your colors around with you, and you're just going to start to make mud. So I like to wipe my sticks off as I go. Back to my next darkest gray. Bring some of these little sky holes back in here, some of these lighter details. And now instead of using the full flat side, I'm just using the flat edge. Just kind of dragging that around. One of my favorite things about this paper, this is UART 500, is once you get enough layers down, you'll start to be able to blend with just the pastels themselves. You won't need to use any kind of blending tools. Definitely getting there. All right, now my really light gray again. It's adding even more texture, details, little sky holes up in the top. Don't be afraid. You don't have to be perfect. You can just keep working at it and make sure you step back too, because you know, we paint so close to the paper that we don't really see what's going on. We're so close to it. So make sure you step back, and you want to go back, you know, at least 3 feet, maybe even more, to really get a true perspective on what your painting is looking like. And keep in mind that the further back things recede, the lighter and the cooler they get. So I'm trying to bring some of this lightness back in there too. now my latest gray. Still haven't gotten to white yet. We're working towards it though. So now I'm carving into my big mass here. Getting some little sky holes in there. You want your sky holes to be really random. You don't want them to have any rhyme or reason to them. And this is a willow tree, so there are some very vertical holes going on in it. I don't know if I can quite replicate that. It's hard to do that without the actual color photo. So I'm not quite sure what's where. All right, coming back to my super dark gray. I'm just gonna tighten some of these up a little bit. They got a little too crazy for me. And if you go over your sky holes really lightly, you can actually kind of blur them without erasing them. And sometimes, depending on how far away your trees are and what your scene is, that can actually sometimes make the sky holes look even more realistic. All right, now coming back in with my black. Pastels are just a lot of layering, layer, layer, layer. You don't want to approach pastels like you would use paint or crayons, where you just kind of put one color down and that's the color. It's just layers upon layers upon layers. I have to think about our reflections in the water too. We've got a shoreline, and then our reflections need to kind of mirror the shape a little bit, as close as you can. Now, this water's pretty steady. It's almost like glass. So we're gonna make sure our reflections are just as clear in the water as they are on shore, and not super random. Now, if the water was rough, we could really go to town with making these very random reflections. All right, just again playing with just some lighter colors to kind of create some feeling of distance, and other things growing back in there. coming in with my lightest gray. I'm just very softly going over my reflections. Because even though our water is still, it's not completely flat, completely still. You're still gonna have some movement. And we'll come in and refine this a little bit more. All right. I'm just kind of smoking out, to use a makeup term, smoking out the edges of these trees. Just, again, creating some feeling of distance back in there. Now in our photo, there is a tree line that extends across, but I'm gonna leave this open because I wanna create a visual path for my viewer to follow when they're engaging with my painting. All right, now I'm bringing in my white. This is a little scary for me because I do not use white. Let's make sure it's completely cleaned off. All right, so I'm just gonna put this in just a few areas. And you can see it's picking up a lot of my blacks and grays, so I'm having to really be diligent with wiping this off. I just want to blend it into my sky. And your sky, most skies, depending on the time of day and the cloud cover and whatnot, but if you have kind of a clear sky, it's going to get lighter at the horizon. All right, so now I'm going to use the edge of this to really mark in where the shoreline is. Just put reinforcing where this shoreline is. You get these little horizontal lines going in to kind of mimic a little bit of water movement. And I'm really just trying to get rid of the paper tone. Some of that lighter color, you know, the sandy color of my paper is showing through a little bit. So I'm just trying to fill everything in so we don't have that warmth poking through here. Also put some dark ripples in the water. All right, coming back with my black. All right, so now my trees back here have kind of ended up looking like pillars. So I'm just gonna come back in, widen them out a little bit. I'm also trying to make sure that I don't create like super regular shapes. These are, like I said, they're starting to look a little like pillars, and they're evenly spaced, which I don't like. So I'm trying to come in and kind of mix them up a little bit. I don't want too much regularity in my scene. Can even dab some sky holes into these little trees back here. All right, now I'm going to come in with a very soft white. And this is going to give me my shoreline. And it's very soft, so it's going to mark on top. So we have quite a few layers down now. I'm creating my little S shape for the eye to follow as we go into the background here. All right, so these two trees are pretty much the same height, which I'm not a fan of. So I'm going to make this one quite a bit taller. Come in with my dark gray now. Just reinforce that it's here. This painting is so small that even these tiny little pastels are too big, but I don't want to break them because they're already really little. Ordinarily, I'm a big proponent of breaking pastels, but like I said, they're already quite small. It's just, this painting is so small that I'm struggling a little bit to get the right kind of marks and detail that I want, but that's okay. We'll make do. So if you get these straight edges from your pastels, you can either just soften them with your finger, or you can just go over it again with the pastel and just kind of blur it out. I wanted to carry my shoreline just a smidge further in to make it a little more of an S shape here. Just remember, when things recede, they get lighter. So you don't want everything to be super obvious, but okay. I'm just gonna put a little more white where I'm still seeing some of this paper showing through. All right, now I'm going to grab a stump. So if you don't know what a stump is, it is a paper stick, and you can sharpen them to clean them. So, or sand them, depending on how big of a pencil sharpener you have, or you can just rub them on some sandpaper. And you'll see it's starting to take that color off. And they don't need to be perfectly clean all the time. It just depends what you're doing. As you can see, this has already got a lot of gray on it. So what I'm gonna do is just use this to kind of drag my white and my grays around and soften some of my edges just very gently. And I like to use a stump for this because my finger is not accurate enough. You know, it's too big to really do this kind of thing. And my favorite little rubber blending tool is too soft. It's gonna soften these details up where they're gonna look too blurry. And I'm not trying to blur them, I'm trying to soften them. So, or take a little pastel off the paper. In areas where I put a little too much. And then as it starts to pick up color, you can also use it to deposit color. So I'm gonna refine some of these trees and add some little bushes and things with the color that's getting stuck on the edge of this stump. And this is, you know, like I said, I couldn't make my pastel stick any smaller, so I can use this stump to get in here, drag around some pastel and get it into areas where I was struggling because the pastel stick was too big. I've also been painting at kind of a weird angle, so not all my lines are straight, so I can also use this to kind of straighten them out. last, I'm gonna come back in with my big white soft pastel. Just get this white back in here, nice and bright. Right, so this is going to serve as my value study for the rest of my paintings for this month, because we're doing all analogous and monochrome, and I find it easier to work from a sketch than a photo. And instead of sketching, I thought I would come in here and actually create something in black and white. That's the first time I've ever done this. I've never painted just purely black and white. So this was a ton of fun. Let me put my initials on here. There we go. But this was awesome. So what we're gonna do, we've got 5 spots. You probably can't see the whole paper, but there's 5 spots on this paper that I'm going to use throughout the month to do our analogous and monochrome paintings. So I hope you join me for that. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to learn a lot about value, about colors, and about how to really balance things out with a very minimal palette. So hope to see you over the course of this month. Take care. Thanks for tuning in. Bye-bye.